You know that moment, the one after the final conversation. You're standing there, heart pounding, saying the words you never wanted to say. Maybe your voice shakes, maybe theirs doesn't. Maybe you've just told someone you love, "I can't keep doing this." And instead of breaking down, they go strangely quiet. Their face hardens, their eyes drift. The room gets cold in a way that has nothing to do with temperature. Then you leave, the door closes, and later that night you stare at your phone, waiting for something, anything. And the thoughts start coming. Was I that easy to lose? Did they ever really love me? How can someone miss you and act like this? Why do I feel devastated while they look completely fine? Am I grieving a person who never even felt what I felt? Here's the truth that flips the whole thing. What looks like indifference in an avoidant is often overwhelm, with the volume turned all the way down. You're not crazy for feeling confused. You're not weak for still caring. And this is not proof that the relationship meant less to them than it did to you. By the end of this video, you're going to understand what an avoidant often feels after you leave, why it rarely shows up the way you expect, and how to stop measuring your worth by their silence. Let's get into it. Most people believe that if an avoidant doesn't chase, doesn't cry, and doesn't fall apart in front of you, then they must not be hurting. But the real truth is much deeper than that. An avoidant person's nervous system often learns to manage closeness by managing need. So when a relationship ends, they can feel two opposite things at once: relief and loss, space and longing, numbness and grief. And because their system is organized around self-protection, the relief often shows first. That's the part most people miss. Avoidant attachment is not the absence of feeling. It's the habit of disconnecting from feeling when feeling becomes too threatening. So after you leave, the love doesn't always disappear. It often goes underground. What looks like stone-cold distance can actually be a person trying not to be swallowed by shame, dependency, vulnerability, or emotional exposure. Their mind may say, "I'm fine," but beneath the surface, their body is often still tracking the loss in fragments, in waves, in moments they never planned for. And honestly, that matters. Because once you understand that, you stop asking the wrong question. The wrong question is, did they feel anything? The better question is, how does someone who is wired to hide from vulnerable emotion experience loss when they can't control the closeness anymore? That's where this gets real. The first thing an avoidant may feel after you leave is relief. Most couples assume relief means certainty. Most people in relationships read calm as closure. So when the avoidant partner seems lighter, quieter, or even more functional right after the breakup, it looks like proof they never cared that much to begin with. But the deeper truth is this: relief is often a nervous system response, not an emotional verdict. If closeness started to feel like pressure, expectation, conflict, or exposure, then separation can feel like the alarm finally got switched off. Not because the bond was fake, not because you imagined it, not because they're heartless, but because their system no longer feels cornered by intimacy. So the disconnecting version sounds like this: "Okay, maybe this is for the best." And the connecting truth beneath it sounds more like this: "My body can breathe again. Don't look too closely at why." That doesn't mean there's no sadness. It means the sadness is arriving behind a locked door. And when you understand that, their early calm stops looking like proof you meant nothing and starts looking like a protection pattern doing exactly what it has always done. And this is the one most couples never figure out. Avoidants often confuse emotional numbness with being okay. Most couples think healing looks obvious. They expect grief to be visible, linear, and easy to recognize. Crying, reaching out, talking it through. missing you out loud. But most people in relationships forget that avoidant patterns are built on compartmentalizing pain so it doesn't take over the whole system. So what's really happening? They may not feel nothing. They may feel too many things at once: sadness, relief, guilt, irritation, longing, resentment, shame, even tenderness, all in the same emotional room. But instead of sitting in that room, they shut the lights off and leave. Their nervous system says, if we stay here too long, this will get too real. So they get busy, distracted, productive, detached. And inside, an unspoken thought keeps moving. Don't go there. Don't make this bigger. Keep it moving. The disconnecting version sounds like this: I'm good. It happened for a reason. The more emotionally honest version would sound like this: I don't actually know what I feel yet. I just know I don't want to feel all of it. That's not peace. That's emotional anesthesia. And when you see that clearly, you stop mistaking their shutdown for strength and start recognizing the quiet cost of being chronically withdrawn from your own heart. But here's what nobody explains. Avoidant grief is often delayed. Most couples expect heartbreak to hit like a storm, right away, loudly, all at once. But for an avoidant, grief can move more like fog, slow, strange, unannounced. It doesn't always arrive when the relationship ends. It often arrives when distraction fails. That's the deeper emotional truth. The attachment system can be deactivated. It cannot be erased. So the loss leaks in sideways, through a song, a restaurant, an empty Sunday, getting sick and having no one to text, reaching for the phone before remembering you're gone, seeing something funny and realizing there's no safe place to send it. That's when the wall gets hairline cracks. That's when something in them quietly says, I thought I wanted space. I didn't know space could feel this empty. The disconnecting version looks like them posting, working, traveling, acting untouched. The connecting version happens 3 weeks later in total silence. They sit in their car after work longer than usual. They stare at nothing. And for the first time, the thought lands, they're really not coming back. This is where it gets really interesting. Because emotional distance in a relationship isn't like a wall. It's like scar tissue that forms slowly over 100 small moments that never got repaired. And when the relationship ends, that scar tissue doesn't disappear. It just stops hiding what was always tender underneath. And when that delayed grief finally rises, the absence between you starts to feel real in a way their logic never could. Here's what changes everything. A lot of avoidants don't just miss you. They feel ashamed. Most couples talk about avoidant partners as if they are simply cold, selfish, or emotionally unavailable by choice. But most people in relationships don't realize how much shame lives beneath avoidance. Because when someone has spent years learning to protect themselves through distance, every moment they could not show up becomes evidence against them in their own mind. So under the surface, it's not always, they asked for too much. Sometimes it's, why couldn't I just stay open? Sometimes it's, why did I pull away when they got closer? Sometimes it's, why does love feel good one minute and dangerous the next? And that shame matters. Because shame makes people hide, not repair. The disconnecting version sounds like this: they were too needy. It was too much. The more truthful version sounds like this: I didn't know how to be needed without feeling trapped. That's a very different sentence. That's not blame. That's exposure. And when that level of honesty finally breaks through, your partner stops being a villain in their own story and becomes a person confronting the walls they used to call personality. Honestly, this part hurts. Distance can make an avoidant feel more connected than closeness did. Most couples assume that if someone pulls away in the relationship, they'll feel even less once it's over. But most people in relationships miss the paradox of avoidant attachment. Longing can feel safer than intimacy. Fantasy is controlled. Memory is controlled. Real closeness is not. So after you leave, they may think about you more. Not because they suddenly transformed, not because they're ready, not because the breakup fixed everything, but because now the relationship exists at a distance where vulnerability feels manageable. They can miss you without being asked to emotionally show up in real time. That's why an avoidant can become nostalgic after separation. That's why they may romanticize what they resisted. That's why a late text can come from a real feeling and still not mean real change. The disconnecting version sounds like this. Hey, been thinking about you. The connecting version would sound like this. I've realized I shut down when closeness got real, and I want to understand that instead of repeating it. Man, those are not the same thing. One is longing, the other is growth. And when you understand that distinction, you stop confusing emotional reach with emotional availability. And that protects your heart in the most real way. And this is where it gets really deep. When you leave, they lose more than you. They lose their pattern. Most couples don't see this. Most people in relationships focus only on whether the avoidant misses the partner. But what often gets exposed after a breakup is the entire cycle itself. No one is there to pursue them. No one is there to pull for connection. No one is there to absorb the tension, initiate repair, or keep the emotional current moving. So now they are alone with themselves. Their habits get louder. Their walls get easier to hear. This isn't a communication hack. This is what happens when a pattern loses its dance partner. Maybe you used to be the one who reached out after conflict. Maybe you named the tension. Maybe you carried the emotional labor of the relationship without even realizing it. Once you're gone, they may start to feel how much of the connection was being held up by your turning toward. The disconnecting version sounds like this. I just need space. I'm better on my own. The more honest version, if they were fully present, might sound like this. I'm realizing how much I depended on you to create the closeness I kept resisting. That recognition can humble someone. It can soften them. Or it can scare them enough to shut down harder. And when they finally see their own cycles without you buffering them, the relationship stops feeling like something that happened to them and starts feeling like something they helped create. So what really happens emotionally to an avoidant after you leave? They arrive at a crossroads. Most couples think the story ends with whether the avoidant comes back, but the real story is whether they become more emotionally honest. Because returning is easy compared to changing. Missing you is easy compared to facing yourself. Wanting connection is easy compared to building safety. And here's what nobody explains. Real change does not look like more chemistry. Not a late-night message, not sudden vulnerability for one weekend, not panic because they lost access to you, but the slow, adult work of becoming emotionally available. That means learning to stay present when closeness stirs fear. It means naming needs before they turn into walls. It means tolerating the discomfort of repair instead of disappearing into old patterns. It means being able to say, I pulled away because I felt overwhelmed, instead of making you decode silence for another 6 months. The disconnecting version sounds like this. I miss you. Can we just start over? The connecting version sounds like this. I don't want to repeat what I did. I want to understand it, own it, and show up differently. Bro, that's the whole game. Not reunion, repair. And when someone can finally do that, the relationship stops feeling like a place where love keeps drifting and starts becoming a place where two people can actually come home to each other. So if you've been sitting there wondering what your avoidant ex feels after you leave, here's the answer. Probably more than they show, less than they know how to process, and differently than you hoped it would look. That doesn't make your pain smaller, and it doesn't make their pattern okay. But it does make the story clearer. This isn't a checklist. It's an invitation to see reality cleanly. Because once you internalize this, you stop chasing proof through their behavior and start trusting what the relationship actually felt like in your body. You stop confusing silence with power. You stop calling crumbs connection. And you start becoming the kind of person who no longer needs someone else's emotional limitations to define your value. These aren't just tips for understanding an avoidant. They're the beginning of becoming emotionally unshakable yourself. The moment you stop measuring love by who feels more and start measuring it by who can stay present, everything about your standards changes.